In a cynical, disturbing, and unsettling display, the sitting vice president of the United States, who apparently has nothing better to do with his time, took over as host of the Charlie Kirk podcast in order to viciously demonize and attack the left and Democrats, and, alongside Deputy White House Chief of Staff Stephen Miller, talk about the Trump administration's aggressive plans to use the pretext of Kirk's assassination to smash their political opponents with state power. It's getting very disturbing. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, when I saw that J.D. Vance, the sitting vice president, was going to take over as a guest host of this podcast, it was really chill because I'm thinking, you're not just a candidate. I mean, I remember when Pete Buttigieg, who ran for office as a Democrat before he joined the Biden administration as transportation secretary, as a former candidate before he became transportation secretary, co-hosted or guest hosted, it was either Jimmy Kimmel Live or the Stephen Colbert Show, and he did a good job. But he wasn't an office holder at the time. That would have felt weird and inappropriate. So here, in the aftermath of a brutal assassination, as the temperature of violent rhetoric and political violence is ratcheting up, J.D. Vance effectively uses this as a way to further propagandize the American right and the American people, using this brilliantly, cynically, but dangerously and irresponsibly to try to prosecute a message that the Democratic Party and the left are solely responsible for political violence and dangerous, such that they need to be crushed with the power of the state. I want to play you two clips, starting with this one here as part of Vance's opening monologue.
Of course, we have to make sure that the killer is brought to justice, and importantly, we have to talk about this incredibly destructive movement of left-wing extremism that has grown up over the last few years, and I believe is part of the reason why Charlie was killed by an assassin's bullet. We're going to talk about how to dismantle that and how to bring real unity that can only come when we tell the truth and everybody knows that they can speak their mind about the issues of the day without being cut down by a murderer's gun.
The dishonesty to suggest, again, there's a real problem with leftist violence. Again, if you want to criticize leftist political violence, feel free. It's not like it doesn't happen. But to insinuate or to explicitly state, as they often do, that political violence is exclusively of the left is incredibly stupid, incredibly dishonest, and incredibly dangerous, especially when 3 months ago, 2 Minnesota Democratic lawmakers, were shot by a Trump supporter. One of them was killed along with her husband. The other was wounded along with his wife. It was a Trump supporter who did that. Paul Pelosi, Nancy Pelosi's husband, was nearly beaten to death by a Trump supporter. Trump supporters have shot Democratic lawmakers in New Mexico back in 2022, killing them. He was recently convicted. The list goes on and on and on. Zateo has a really good website, to say nothing of all the compelling studies from the Trump administration, the Biden administration, the Obama administration, the federal government, law enforcement in the federal government under Republicans and Democrats, universities and think tanks, proving that right-wing violence is more frequent and more egregious. Now, again, we don't have to say one side is worse than the other if you think that that's inappropriate, but to pretend that the side that does it less is the side that's solely responsible is really gross, really dumb, really irresponsible, and really dangerous. And again, listen to the language he uses, dismantle it. And then to talk about unity. My friend here was brutally murdered. Obviously, it was the left that got him killed. It's basically everybody who disagrees with us. You guys all got him killed. So we're going to dismantle you, and then we're going to bring real unity. That is the most Orwellian, creepy shit that I've heard from this administration. Real unity is when we crush you ruthlessly, and you don't get to do anything or vote or have any power whatsoever, and you're forced to obey. What? Bro, what are you getting at? There is nothing unifying about your message. Now, if your take is, listen, we are going to work aggressively to tamp down on political violence wherever we find it, left or right, nothing wrong with that message. That's a good message to have. But the phrasing and the insinuations and the messages coming from elected Republicans and Republicans with power, like Stephen Miller, Voldemort, aka Voldemort, the Deputy White House Chief of Staff, this stuff is really, really sinister. So here's the Deputy White House Chief of Staff going into more detail.
The last message that Charlie sent me was I think it was just the day before we lost him, which is that we need to have an organized strategy to go after the left-wing organizations that are promoting violence in this country. And I will write those words onto my heart and I will carry them out. The people ask me...
Stop right there. Again, this guy is just sitting... I mean, just imagine how two could play at this game. How President Biden, if he wanted to, or President Obama, because there was political violence during the Obama years, during the Clinton years. You know, Gabby Giffords was shot by a right-wing... Like, I mean, all of this stuff, imagine using it as a pretext. Obama could have said after the Gabby Giffords shooting, you know, Gabby Giffords, I think she would want me to take everybody's guns away from them. Yeah. Using this as a pretext to create political capital. Again, for cynical political strategy, it's brilliant. In terms of the sincerity of the message, he's obviously full of shit. And it's incredibly gross, especially when I've been told by so many fans of Charlie Kirk that Charlie Kirk's real legacy is free and fair debate. Then if that's true, Charlie Kirk would not want you to use the powers of the state to suppress your political opponents or indeed even his political opponents. Now, of course, even though I condemn the political violence against Charlie Kirk, I don't think Charlie Kirk was particularly principled in that respect, given that he co-signed pretty much everything Trump has done with respect to the Trump administration's war on free speech. I don't think he was a principled devotee of free speech. So I'm actually inclined to believe Stephen Miller that is something that they discuss, but you shouldn't do it. And especially when you're leaving yourself vulnerable to creating a precedent that could be used against you by the next Democrat. The hypocrisy of it and the precedent of it, incredibly dangerous. But let's let him continue.
You know, what emotions I'm feeling right now, this is something people say, I mean, you kind of know the answer. There's incredible sadness, but there's incredible anger. And the thing about anger is that unfocused anger or blind rage is not a productive emotion.
Right.
But focused anger, righteous anger, directed for a just cause is one of the most important agents of change in human history.
Charlie showed that. Amen.
And we are going to channel all of the anger that we have over the organized campaign that led to this assassination to uproot and dismantle these terrorist networks. So let me explain a little bit what that means. So,
You've got 30 seconds, so be quick, Stephen.
The organized doxing campaigns, the organized riots, the organized street violence, the organized campaigns of dehumanization, vilification, posting people's addresses, combining that with messaging that's designed to trigger and incite violence, and the actual organized cells that carry out and facilitate the violence, it is a vast domestic terror movement. And with God as my witness, we are going to use every resource we have at the Department of Justice, Homeland Security, and throughout this government to identify, disrupt, dismantle, and destroy these networks and make America safe again for the American people. It will happen, and we will do it in Charlie's name.
The problem is, even if we take what he says at face value, which we shouldn't because they're liars, what's he mean by incite violence? Again, I mean, just imagine, I want you guys to imagine that in the aftermath of January 6th, President Biden says, hey, listen, it's not enough to just go after the perpetrators of January 6th, the actual insurrectionists who had their feet on the ground in the Capitol. It's not even enough to go after those who explicitly organized the insurrection, okay? Like Trump, for example, the people who set it up. But really anybody who incited it, like anybody who denied the election. Didn't you guys kind of incite the January 6th insurrection? I mean, the election was won fair and square. You denied the reality in order to advance a nefarious political agenda. And then the insurrection happened. People were injured. Cops were beaten. People died that day. And then in conjunction with the day. It's not, I mean, imagine Biden saying something like that. How would Stephen Miller have reacted? He'd have been panicked. He'd have been upset. He would have been like, that's getting really overbroad, right? That's the problem with this. Stephen Miller is not known for his restraint, his moderation, pretty friggin' ruthless. And so what's he mean by radical left? Is Pondering Politics a radical left organization? We've criticized Charlie Kirk, criticized the Trump administration. Sure, we've condemned the political violence. We condemn the assassination of Trump or of Kirk and the assassination attempts against Trump. Are we radical like organizations? Is Midas Touch? MSNBC, because Trump has repeatedly threatened to go after MSNBC. What is it? And we also know the FBI is reportedly investigating social media posts hinting at Charlie Kirk assassination before it happened. What does that mean? Does that mean incendiary rhetoric? Do they believe it's a conspiracy? Do they have any evidence it's a conspiracy? And the reason I ask, and I'm so skeptical, is, as we'll probably discuss in a separate video, right now there is a mass cancel culture push by the MAGA movement and key allies of the Trump administration to dox and get people fired for criticizing Charlie Kirk, not merely ghoulishly celebrating his murder. And I do agree that's pretty ghoulish. Even then, you have the First Amendment right to do it. Set that aside. People who just say, I don't like Charlie Kirk. Sorry that this happened to him. Wish it didn't happen to him, but I'm not a fan of him. Even these people are being doxxed. And so it's like, this sure seems like it's not really about eliminating political violence. It's about eliminating, or neutralizing, I should say, your political opposition by any means necessary politically, using this as a pretext. And that's what I don't have any trust or faith in the Trump administration to do any of this responsibly. Quite frankly, nor should you. So you should call it out vociferously. This is pretty dangerous, disturbing stuff that the Trump administration seems very quick to pounce on Kirk's assassination and use it as a pretext for an even greater authoritarian power grab and an application of authoritarian executive power against, again, not just violent extremists, in which case, good to go, but against the political opposition. We have no reason to believe that it will be narrowly tailored to actual violent people. And that should make all of us nervous. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.